In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can add a second axis to your charts in Excel. So second axis can be useful if you've got a series of different scales and different units that you're dealing with. And in this example, I've got website visitors that are in thousands, page views which are in tens of thousands. So by putting them on different scales, it's a lot easier to plot this out. If I just use raw numbers, obviously the page views would be a lot higher than the website visitors, and it would be hard to see the relationship between that and the overall trending. So that's why it's useful to put them into different scales. So to create a chart, I'm going to go to Insert, and under the chart option, obviously you can select one of these charts, or you can just open up all the charts here. And then on the All Charts tab, if you go down to the bottom under Combo, you can already select your secondary axis right here. So right when you're creating the chart, you can decide which one you want on which axis. Now you can keep both of them as, let's say, line charts if you wanted to, but you can also use a different one. So let's say we use have page views as a column chart. Really doesn't matter. So now if we select the website visitors as a secondary axis, we can see that an axis is added here. And so for the website visitors, it tops out at 135. So that's going to be this axis here. So the website visitors, the second axis gets pushed to the right. And then this left axis relates to the page views, which has the higher values up to about 400. Now, if I flip it and say, okay, I want the page views as the second axis, then we can see the page views with the higher scale is on the right-hand side. And then we've got the website visitors on the left-hand side. So now I'm going to hit OK. And now we can see it's loaded into Excel. Now, if you forget this step and just create the chart before assigning a secondary axis, you can still go back and change that just by right-clicking and select Change Series Chart Type. And then you're back in here and you can select Combo and then go back and select which one you want to be as the secondary axis. Now, the one thing you'll probably want to do at this point, though, is to add some titles to your axis, because obviously just looking at this, it may be confusing what number relates to what, because obviously there could be a bit of overlap here. We've got 120, 140, right? So that could potentially be on both sides. So what we can do is, with the chart selected, we can see the chart design tab in the ribbon and go to add chart element. Under axis titles, there's an option for primary vertical and then secondary vertical. So if we start with primary vertical, so remember this is the scale that goes up to 160, so that's going to relate to our website visitors. And then once that's done, I can go to add chart element and this time add a secondary vertical axis. And this one is going to be for the page views. So now it's a bit clearer to whoever's viewing the chart which scale relates to what. And we can see clearly that the column charts relate to the page views. The line relates to the website visitors. Obviously, you can still use colors to differentiate them, but by having a different chart type altogether, it's a bit easier to visualize that even further. Now, the one thing I will warn you about if you're using a second axis is if you want to change the order of how the data looks. For example, if we want this to go in the opposite order, we've got March at the start, November at the end. We could right-click Format Axis, and there's an option to put the categories in reverse order. But if we do this, our chart starts to look really messy, right? And it now becomes a lot harder to read this. And the one thing you'll notice, while it did flip one series, it did not flip the other. So pay attention to the page views, the columns going up, and then we've got the website visitors here, they're going down. If I flip this, it's only flipped that line chart for the website visitors. It has not flipped the page views. They're still going up, right? So if I flip them, it should be the opposite, but it's not. So that's just one thing to watch out for. If you're adding a second axis, avoid using this option to flip your categories in reverse order. If you do want it in reverse order, I would suggest just changing your data source as it is, just to make sure it's formatted in the way that you want. Because by doing this, reversing the order, it's going to make your chart more difficult to read. So another example where we can use a second axis is when we've got revenue and we've got a growth rate. So in this example, we've got revenue. Let's say this is in thousands, millions, whatever the case may be. but the year-over-year growth rate, is in percentages. So it's in a different unit. So in this case, we definitely want to plot this on a second axis. So again, we select our data, go to Insert, Chart, and back to all charts, combo. And in this example, because we've got a percentage, we're going to plot this on a second axis, of course. What may be helpful in this case is to use a scatter, because now we just got those hovering circles, and we can add the percentages over top. So I hit OK, launch that in there, and then we can add data labels, and then format the data labels so that they're right above. And then what we can also do actually to make them more clear is add a shape, label shape, so sort of a background here, making it a bit easier to read our values. But by doing it that way, it's a lot easier to show both the revenue and the growth rate. So we can see that although our revenue has been increasing on a monthly basis, we can see on a year-over-year basis a bit of a different trend where the growth rate was increasing, but now it's dipped down in the most recent months. So by having these two axes, we have that flexibility to show the percentage growth and also the raw revenue number to give us a bit more context into how these numbers look. And in this case, you may not need to use an axis title just because it's a bit more explanatory. We've got percentages obviously on this side, and we've got an axis on this side. So you may not need to add the axis titles just because there's going to be less confusion over what relates to what, because one's in percentages, one's in numbers. It's a lot easier to discern what relates to what. But as you can see, creating a second axis isn't really difficult in Excel. The main thing is when you select the chart type, go to combo, select one of them as your secondary axis. And the one thing to watch out for is just resist the temptation, I guess, to flip these, because it can make your chart look a bit messier. In this case, it doesn't really it doesn't matter. We've got different units. It's still the same thing. We don't have any sort of trending here, but it can give you a bit of a problematic data set. And actually, in this case, we do still have a problem because here we've got March 2024 pointing at 15%. If I flip it, now that 15% relates to February 2024. So you can see why reversing the categories can be a bit problematic with a second axis. So I'd suggest just to leave that unchecked. And if you do want to change how it looks, just rearrange your data instead. And that way, your chart is displaying the data as you intend to, and it's not showing it incorrectly. So if you like this video, please leave a like and make sure to subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.